You are now listening to the Building with AI Promises and Heartbreaks podcast, brought to you by Solid.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Building with AI Promises and Heartbreaks. Today, I have with me Ryan Wexler from SignalFire. Ryan is also a board member of Solid, so I'm really excited to have him here. Welcome on the podcast, Ryan.
Yeah, Yoni, thanks for having me. Excited to do this.
So today, we're going to get a bit of a different perspective, guys. Normally, we talk with people who have built with AI or led teams building with AI. Today, we're going to get a horizontal view into the market, what's actually being built, what customers are actually buying, and so forth. So it's going to be super interesting. Before we go into that, Ryan, what does SignalFire do other than invest into Solid?
Yeah, definitely. And again, Yoni, thanks for having me on. I guess just super quickly on myself, I'm an investor here at SignalFire. I do a lot of our early stage infrastructure and AI investing, a lot of AI nowadays, as you could probably guess. Before SignalFire, I've been in venture for about 8 years. And before that, my background's in data infra and data engineering. And SignalFire, at a really high level, we're a VC fund. We as a team have been around for a bit over a decade now. We're investing out of our latest set of funds. It's our fifth one of about $1 billion, doing everything from pre-seed to Series B investing, a lot of AI, a lot of infra, and a lot of healthcare as well. And we do everything every other VC promises to founders. So we have smart technical investors with domain expertise. We have a fantastic portfolio support and development team to help on recruiting, go-to-market, sales, ops, PR, anything you could possibly imagine. But what makes us super unique, and it's actually how SignalFire started, is we're about 60 people total. And of that, about a third of our team is actually our internal engineering team. And they're software engineers, they're data engineers, data analysts, MLEs. And we actually build a lot of products, both internally for our investment team to help us find great companies, find great founders, win the potential investments. But more interestingly, we also build a lot of products for our portfolio company founders, including you.
Mm-hmm.
The most popular things that we built internally is we actually built our own internal recruiting platform. So the way that we do that and the way we source top candidates is we actually buy a lot of third-party data from all those like super sketchy data brokers out there. We work with a bunch of like proxy networks so that we can scrape LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub, engineering blog posts, basically anything you can imagine. And then we do the data entity resolution to match it all together. Call it semantic modeling, call it data modeling, call it building an ontology. But we essentially create this higher level of abstraction and then feed that into a bunch of different products and AI processes we have for both recruiting, like I mentioned, but also go to market. We have a lot of data internally on the internal infrastructure for the Global 2000 based off of what their engineers are talking about on Twitter and LinkedIn, based off of their GitHub activity. So whenever someone stars or forks or contributes to a GitHub project, they're probably using it internally. They're engineering blog posts. So whenever they mention they work with a specific company, and our founders use that essentially to help with their outbound sales processes. I said a lot super quickly, but data and AI is really core to what we do at SignalFire.
And adding value. No, VC is always talking about we add value. It's adding true value. So actually, just before the recording of this episode, I met with Andrew from your team. I meet with him every week. He helps us on the recruiting side. Very much appreciated. For those listening, especially founders, there's a great team at SignalFire. Ryan is on our board and is great, but also there are many other people supporting. And highly recommend them. So if anyone is talking to SignalFire, please do reach out to me, and I can tell you all the good, bad, and ugly, but mostly good.
We didn't pay him to say that. We only paid him in cash.
Yeah. Okay, so you've been investing for 10 years, and you before that were in data. What changed over the last 10 years? If you try to kind of go back 2016 and compare to now, what changed?
Yeah, a lot. The big things is We've gone through a few different hype cycles and investment cycles within data and AI. People talk about AI nowadays as if it's a new thing. It's not. It's been around for decades at this point. The data powering all these AI systems, again, it's not new. They've been around for a long time. But the use cases for the data that a lot of large enterprises are collecting are starting to finally come to fruition. So, a decade ago, if you spoke with most data engineering, data science, data analytics teams, what they would tell you is that they have their internal sources on which they're doing data storage. They do a lot of data cleansing, a lot of data curation. The actual systems to do the storage and the compute have changed. We've gone from on-prem systems to cloud systems. We've gone from things like SQL Store and Teradata and Netezza to Hadoop, if you want to scale out compute, to now things like Snowflake and Databricks and whatever's coming along the horizon. But the actual work being done by data teams has really shifted from a service provider. You build dashboards, you build BI reports, you try to answer basic questions around the business to how do we empower different business teams. So hear a lot about embedding data and data analysts and data scientists across different organizations within the company, trying to bring them closer together. That was the last 5 to 10 years. And now with AI, we're starting to see the empowerment of every single individual across the organization to actually be able to use data. So not just looking at stale dashboards and BI reports and things like that, but how do you actually use your internal data to power both yourself internally for your own internal projects, but also how do you build customer facing solutions that are powered by the data you've collected over the last 10, 20, 50, 100 years, whatever it is.
Yeah. So
That's the big,
it's a big change.
yeah.
It's a huge change. Yesterday, I was at a hackathon with one of our customers, and they built an agent that takes their customer information data. So everything about the customers they already have, mostly enterprise customers, and they augmented with data from other sources, even from LinkedIn, because you mentioned scraping LinkedIn, et cetera. So from services that provide LinkedIn info, Zoom info type stuff, et cetera. So they put it all together. I think it was 80 something different signals. And then they use that to generate alerts for CSMs to say, okay, for these guys, you need to sell these additional products that you're not selling today. Or for a different account, they're at a churn risk because of these reasons. And this is what you need to tell them. So it's literally taking all that data that the organization is sitting on and bringing it a lot closer to CSMs. But instead of giving them yet another dashboard where they can see red and green and stuff like that, it actually sends them both Slack messages and creates notes inside Gainside and telling them this is what you need to do with each account. And I think that's what you're referring to. Like that's the
Yeah.
big leap there.
Um, Data has become so much more actionable just given Gen AI and given the types of agents people are able to build internally. People have been talking about data as the new oil, data is important, a modern data stack, all this stuff for a long time. Yet the end result has always been another dashboard, another BI, another report that people look at and then kind of throw away. By far, the biggest change is the types of things people are building internally are actually actionable things, whether it's an agent doing actions on behalf of a human or whether it's building net new products that are infused with your own internal data.
Mhm.
That's by far the biggest change.
And so it feels sometimes I tell people about these use cases that I'm seeing where, agents are taking action or providing very specific recommendations, et cetera. It feels like there are some people who get it already. Some of them have been on this podcast. And then the vast majority are still talking dashboards and BI and things like that. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. So there tends to be three different types of personas that I meet nowadays. There's one persona, which are they're definitely disbelievers. I like to call them AI haters. They think of LLMs and they think of foundation models and all these agents as essentially things that don't work in production. They still think in terms of like Chat GPT like 2 or 3
Mhm.
and think of all the hallucinations. And so they call it a parlor trick, or they hope it's like a hype cycle or a bubble that's just going to pop one day. That group is definitely becoming more quieter, however. Like, that group is definitely shrinking. The vast majority of people I meet see the use cases and see the value add with LLMs and with agents, but they're still building basic things. They're building co-pilots within their applications. They're empowering their employees with ChatGPT Enterprise or Microsoft Copilot or Cursor, and they might be seeing 30% productivity improvements. They're helping the individual employee do their job, but they're not yet reinventing what it means to be a software engineer, to be a marketer, to be a salesperson. Then there's those like rare few, and you speak to them and you hear about they're building these giant agent architectures, and you hear about the huge productivity gains, the 300% productivity gains. That's starting to pop up a lot more. It used to be like a few people that you could just name, but it's starting to appear. There tends to be these like AI evangelists inside of most large companies that just immediately get it. You hear about their token expenditure sometimes, and it's sometimes half their salary. Sometimes it's 2x their salary. That's where all this is going.
If you had to do, let's a little, and by the way, people in data hate, for some reason they hate pie charts, but imagine a pie chart. The first group, second group, third group, what are the percentages would you say are today? Across, let's say the population are people in larger enterprises. So a couple of thousand employees all the way up to tens of thousands and above.
Yeah. Right now, call it, I can give you like specific examples. Call it 20 to 30% of organizations are still in the AI hating camp, where they still put it as a parlor trick. They don't necessarily trust what's being generated. Call it 60% are in the other camp, where they're using these tools. They're seeing the value add. They think it's nice. They think it's good. They think it's helpful, but they're still not yet reorienting their day to day around what these agents are. And then there's that rare 5 to 10%, which are fully bought in, and they're completely rethinking what it means to do their job every single day.
Okay, that aligns with my experience. So the group in the middle, that big group in the middle, what do you think is holding them back? Like, one thing I've noticed is they're afraid to dream. I tell them many times on my calls, I said, listen, it's okay to dream because this thing can become a reality. Like, it sounds crazy, but it's possible. What do you see as the thing that's holding them back, and in keeping them in that group versus the 5 to 10%?
Yeah. Biggest thing, it's still early. All these things that we're talking about are only 2, 3 years old.
Yep.
ChatGPT itself only dropped like 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about waves like this, we're talking about multi-decade waves. And when you talk about the tools that are being invented themselves, they're still pretty immature today. I mean, even think about like Claude Code. Claude Code itself is only what, a year old? It's hard to get like a large Fortune 500 organization to adopt a tool that's only a year old, that has updates basically daily,
Mm-hmm.
from a company that itself is only 3 to 5 years old. So the big thing is just change management. Everything that we're talking about right now is still very nascent. So it's not that they're doomers. It's not that they're saying that these tools don't necessarily work. It's just it's just going to take time. And then you have to have the creativity that you were talking about as well. The people that are really, really, really leaned in, it's all they're thinking about 24/7. Go to their job, they try to do as much as humanly possible. And then they go to the hackathons that you're talking about and they build even more. And then they go home and then they spend way too much on their personal credit cards on tokens.
Mm-hmm.
It's an entirely new way to think about tasks, entirely new way to think about white collar labor. It doesn't happen overnight.
Okay. So let's say I'm a founder building in this space, early stage, as you said. In light of the fact that the vast majority are still not there yet, they're still, either haters, still not really dreaming. What are you seeing work, right? So you have some companies that have breakout success. There are their B, C rounds, and you've seen some things really, really work. What have you seen?
The types of companies that are selling into the enterprise today can be broken down into three. It's what we've been talking about. How do you completely re-architecture an enterprise? How do you completely rethink your organization How do you completely rebuild all the processes that you've built up over a multi-decade cycle? That's really hard. That takes a long time. It requires change management. It requires consultants. It requires FDEs. It requires understanding your tasks and breaking them down into SOPs, like operating procedures. And that's going to take decades and decades. The next part is large enterprises wanting AI and they want it now. They have a CEO, they have a head of AI initiatives that's saying we need to do AI. And what the vast majority of those people are doing is they're buying off the shelf solutions. So they go to their team and say, do AI and do it now. And so the marketing team will buy a AI marketing tool. The sales team will buy an AI sales tool. The customer support team will buy a AI customer support tool. And it works and it's great. And this is what people talk about when they talk about the next generation of SaaS. So it's applications that are AI infused. It has built-in agents that can do the task. Think customer support, as opposed to buying a SaaS solution that does customer support. As part of it, there's now agents that can take the majority of tickets. So it's next gen SaaS. The third part, which is by far the biggest right now, and what the vast majority of the mega hype cycle, fast growing companies are doing, is bottoms up prosumer. So this is, how do you enable every person inside of a large organization to do AI? And what you do is you buy a license to Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT Enterprise or Claude Code or Cursor or Higgsfield AI or 11 Labs. It's, how do you enable each individual person within the company to get their own productivity? So not company-wide productivity, but on an individual level. And when you do that, and when it really works, that's when you see some of these companies grow from like 0 to 100 faster than any company in history. That's basically what's working today.
Those are three very different examples. So I understand the adoption, especially with the last one. When you think about it from the perspective of proving ROI, how do each of these buckets look like? So if my organization has 10,000 knowledge workers and I get all of them seats with Copilot, let's say,
Mhm.
how do I show? I mean, that's 10,000 people. Let's say I'm paying $20 per seat just for simplicity, $200,000 a month. Call it 2 million a year. How do I show ROI on that versus the second class that you were talking about, where these are tools that are handling tickets and now they can handle a customer support ticket for 75 cents versus the human that was handling it before? And then there's the transformations that take forever. How do I show ROI for that? So how do you think about it in that lens?
Yeah. It's essentially the argument of like the co-pilot versus the automating the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult. You speak with some large Fortune 500 organizations that are signing ELAs, enterprise license agreements, for these bottoms up tools. The ROI is still case studies. It's speaking with individual users inside of these large organizations and understanding how are they using these tools. How do they use Microsoft Copilot? How do they use Claude Code? How do they use Cursor? How do they use Higgsfield for their own individual productivity? It's not really quantifiable today. Some of the things that people are looking at, we all know are pretty bad metrics, like amount of code, like lines of code written. Everyone knows lines of code written, terrible metric, makes no sense. People debate it all the time. You see people saying, I use this tool and I'm so much more productive because every single day I push to GitHub. I push something new. Or I'm now deploying 10,000 lines of code instead of 2,000 lines of code. It's not a good metric, but it's the best a lot of these people have. And again, it's going to take a long time to prove ROI for things like this. How do you show that an individual worker is more productive when the computer first came out day one? They have to redo everything that they've been doing for the last decades before the computer.
Yep.
And nowadays, imagine going to JP Morgan and saying, we're going to take away all of your computers. It's just not even possible anymore. We're going to see the same type of wave.
So that leads to the first example we were talking about transformation. Those take the longest. So they're the hardest to show ROI for right now,
Yep.
is what you're saying.
Yep.
So when you're looking at startups that grow, it's the third kind that grow the fastest, and then the second, next gen SaaS that grow the second fastest, and then the transformation ones are the ones that take the longest to
Yeah.
grow. From what you're seeing,
hmm Generally, yeah.
okay. So if I'm a founder and I can build in any of the three groups, which one should I build? I'm starting something completely new. Okay, what should be?
Whichever one you can win in. I think that this is a deeply personal question. I think some founders are really great at selling to the enterprise and doing a lot of solution sales and talking about re-architecting your current workflows. I think some founders are terrible at it. Goes for the other way as well. I think some founders are great at developer marketing or prosumer marketing and buying ads on Twitter and LinkedIn and doing hackathons and things like that. And other founders are terrible at it. The thing I always say is do whatever you think you can win at. And then a lot of the questions around market analysis and productivity gains and R, those can all be figured out. But the thing that can't be figured out is kind of like going against yourself. So I always say this is a deeply personal question. Do whatever you can win.
Yeah, I like that approach. I always say that I can't build a consumer startup. I don't get it. Like I don't know how to do it. I'm a terrible consumer myself. My wife has probably like 100 plus apps on our phone and we pay for some of them, etc. I have maybe 20. I'm not good at it. So I like that. Just a founder needs to first of all look at themselves and say, okay, what am I good at selling before they pick the thing. And then within that, I think your point is you can succeed there are many ways to succeed depending on what you're good at.
Every company has their own individual success story. It's why people like these types of interviews because then you can hear their story. If you were to take Mark Zuckerberg, okay, maybe not a good example. If you took Evan Spiegel, the founder of Snapchat, and
Mhm.
tomorrow you made him the CEO of Microsoft, he would do badly. He doesn't have enterprise sales experience. He's never managed an organization that large. Goes the other way as well. If you were to take Satya Nadella and
Mhm.
make him the CEO of Twitter, probably wouldn't do that well. You have to do whatever you can win at. And then everything else that we're talking about now can be figured out over time.
So what are areas that you think are interesting to build companies in right now, right? We talked about the three categories. We talked about people's forte. Obviously, the coding space is solved, right? You've got Cursor and Claude Code, et cetera. Like going into that sounds crazy. What do you think are areas that nobody's built anything interesting in yet, but you think are ripe for founder focus in the coming 12 months, let's say?
It's a great question. I don't know if this is a net new thing, but I'm incredibly bullish on voice AI. I still think that we are on the precipice of a massive wave within voice AI for consumer, prosumer, enterprise use cases. And the reason for that is everything else that we're talking about, it is how do you produce more software? So for coding, for example, individual developers have their own individual level of productivity. You have different amounts of time it takes to produce a feature, do a PR, produce an application. With voice AI, you can only say so many words per second.
Mhm.
And so there's a very, very, very clear ROI with voice AI. We automated X amount of minutes. You have Y amount of humans speaking X amount of minutes less because of this
Mhm.
tool.
Yep.
Whereas for coding, for example, it's really hard to measure ROI. Like we were just talking about it before. With voice AI, the ROI is so undeniable that we're going to see use cases across anything you can think of. We talked a lot about customer support. We're going to see the same thing for sales. We're going to see the same thing for marketing. We're going to be seeing the same thing for outbound SDRs, for inbound calls, for patient management, patient output, patient calling, patient out calling. We're going to be automating conversations like this at some point. If you do this podcast for the next 10 years, at some point it might be Yoni's AI having a conversation with Ryan's AI. Very bullish on voice AI. And then the second thing that we're thinking a lot about is how do you continuously improve your agents? So when you have an agent in production and you're monitoring each agent trace, each agent run, how do you systematically monitor what those agents are doing in production? So real time, but also offline.
Hmm.
In addition to how can you systematically teach the agent to improve itself? Whether
Yep.
that means that you change the model weights, so you do some post training or a continuous RL feedback, whether it's you change the prompt itself so the agent performs better, whether it is you create a new rule inside of your coding environment. But how do you continuously teach an agent what a good or a bad agent run is? And then have self-improving products, self-improving applications, self-improving models. That's a big thing that a lot of people are doing research on right now.
Yeah. So on the voice side, let me ask quickly about that one. Is it only replacing minutes right now? So minutes spoken by human, replacing it with minutes spoken by AI? Or are you also seeing a growth potential where today there are conversations that are not being had through voice because they're, too expensive to do with humans that we will be able to enable going forward? Do you think it's both of those, or is it mostly the replacement of humans with
No,
AI on the voice?
it's absolutely both. I can't tell you how many of our later stage companies are now able to have conversations that they just did not have the human and the manpower to have before. But it's a third thing also. It is actually improving the end result of these conversations as well. I can give you a great case study.
Yeah.
I spoke with a autism behavioral treatment center, and they are located across around 10 states, and they manage 50, 75 different centers. And currently they had 10 full-time recruiters doing 20 calls per day for recruiting for autism behavioral treatment therapists. It's a very hard job. And so the turnover for these types of individuals is so high that they have to constantly be recruiting net new ones. They were able to automate those recruiting calls with voice AI. They were able to automate. It only took them 2 months. They now automated 3 million minutes a year. They're able to run more interviews than they have ever been able to run prior, while still keeping their full-time recruiters on staff to actually review the transcripts and to do the grading, not just the monotonous 20-minute asking the same questions over and over. And the outputs are better also. The interviews and the transcripts and the grading of these transcripts are actually doing better hires, and they're seeing higher patient satisfaction.
It's
We're
amazing.
We have voice agents doing recruiting for autism treatment technicians to help children. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. The impact is fantastic. Like, there's probably also therapy that at least part of it you could deliver that way as well. It obviously begs the question of, can AI do it? It should be allowed. Should you disclose that it's AI and so forth? But I think once we get over that hump, then people will be open to that and actually allowing AI to have real conversations with people, with people who need assistance as well, and help them.
It's that, but it's also the changing of job responsibilities and job duties that I mentioned as well. So
Yeah, I
those
agree.
10 recruiters were essentially just doing 20 calls a
Mhm.
day, 20 minutes each, asking the same 3 to 5 questions. And now they're able to focus on other things. They're focused on, how do we actually close this candidate? How do we make them excited to work here? For the people that they did hire, how do we keep them excited to stay? Their actual job has changed basically overnight, but they're doing much more interesting work.
Yeah, and they're still employed, which
Yeah.
is important for them. There's a lot of talk about as AI SDRs, et cetera. So SDRs, for the listeners, is sales development reps, people who reach out to find customers. And we have one SDR with the output of about 2 to 3 people. And so you see the difference, and we're using a platform, an AI based platform to do it, et cetera. But you're seeing the difference that it makes. And it makes the entire company more successful. It makes the individual more successful, and you can do more versus replacing people. I think we would still grow our SDR team like we would have in the past, but the results would have been much, much, much greater.
Are you saying Solid is hiring?
Yeah, we're always hiring. We are hiring a founding head of sales, by the way, for those who are listening. And yeah, we're always hiring. On the agent side that you talked about, I don't know if you've seen, there was a blog post. I forget where I read it a few weeks ago. They let AI try to improve GPT-2. So GPT-2 is at this point 4 years old, I think. right? It
something
came
like
out like 4 years ago, more or less. They let AI improve GPT-2, and it found an opportunity for improvement of the model in a way that no human found before. So the humans that were working on GPT-2 did not see this. AI was able to. Now, GPT-2, the model is small enough that it can fit within the context window of the newer models, but the newer models were able to do that. So the approach of having AI improve AI, analyze the agent, and understand how to improve the logic makes sense. And you're saying there's a lot of research in that space right now. And if somebody comes with a really good solution, and they're a really good team, then they have a shot at getting your backing.
Yeah, definitely. It's that, but it's also it's not just the model improvement, but it's the product improvement as well. So we are investors in a seed stage company that essentially has built out their own panel, their own individual human network to
Hmm.
do market research. So if you are DoorDash and you're launching a major partnership with McDonald's in Southeast Arizona, before you launch that partnership, you want to speak with people in Southeast Arizona and make sure they like McDonald's and what do they like about McDonald's and what types of foods and how should they market it and promote it and things like that. And they have an AI agent essentially do that interview. So they have a voice AI agent do the interview and speak to all these people, as opposed to DoorDash needing to hire human people to ask basic questions over and over and over, or to do a static survey where you click the 5 bubbles and people speed through it and they try to get it over with really fast to get
Hmm.
their $10 gift
And the
card.
lottery gift card. Yeah.
And essentially what they're doing is they have the agent do the interview, and then they have a second agent running constantly. And after each interview, the second agent reads the first agent interview. It reads the prompts, it reads the transcripts, it reads the tool calls, it reads the reasoning steps. And it's one question, it's one task is basically, how do we improve the interview? And whatever the output of that is, it'll either change the prompt slightly, or it'll generate a new rule for the voice agent, or it might actually change the underlying model, the underlying voice model that's being utilized, or it might change the voice itself by having some post training data that they have internally. But it's essentially a self improving product at this point. The more interviews it runs, the more times the secondary agent has to improve the interview process. Super interesting.
It's
Every
amazing.
company is trying to build this stuff on their own right now. There's
Mhm.
going to be a framework to make this much easier and more reliable, but this is the way the future is going. Agents communicating with other agents and having self improving products.
I agree with you. We've been testing that as well in some areas in Solid, and you really can see the value. In our case, it's an agent that automatically improves the semantic modeling that the first agent created, and it's amazing. The second one is able to pick up on mistakes the first one's made, and then it makes the changes and it runs through the cycle again. So,
And you're going to
is
have
your
a
point?
third agent improving the second agent to
Yes,
improve the first agent. And
exactly.
there's going to be a full cascade of sub agents at some point that are given very, very specific tasks. Some of these models will be big and expensive. Some of them will be much smaller and cheaper. But this is the way that products are going forward.
So if we kind of summarize what we talked about over the last 40 minutes or so, so obviously there's a massive change in data and what you can do with data and the opportunity. And there are different people and different perspectives and people that want to adopt it faster versus slower. There's a huge amount of opportunity. There is the ability for now those using agents to make the agents work better. Now let's try to look forward. Usually I say 5 years just for the hell of it, but we can say 1 or 2 years. Try to look past 2027. Let's go to 2028. What do you
Mhm.
think? How things are going to look like 2 years from now? What are you going to be investing in?
Yeah. It's really hard to look that forward into the future because of how fast everything is moving. And it's the same reason why a lot of enterprises struggle buying solutions right now, because they're really worried that anything that they do today is going to be thrown away tomorrow. They invest in an agent framework, but then the models get better. So the agent framework has to change slightly, but then the models change. Then the agent framework has to change. And it keeps happening over and over. Same thing with products. You invest in a harness on top of a model, but then the model changed. So the harness has to change. but then the model changes. It's going back and forth. In terms of what I'm looking to invest in going forward, again, it goes back to what we were saying before, great founders. Number one thing by far, great founders that have a differentiated viewpoint on the world and that can tell me where the world is going. So I don't have to be the one to be making estimates like this. But if I had to answer, it's going to be what we were saying earlier. It's going to be agent systems and agent architectures where agents are speaking with agents, which are speaking with agents. And we're going to have this cascading effect that just means that we should be investing a lot more in NVIDIA and a lot more in inference and unlocking net new use cases that we can't even fathom right now.
Yeah. I'm with you, especially on the agent side. So I know we talked a bit about OpenClaw. I set up
Mhm.
my own OpenClaw. It's a pain in the butt. There's so many things that don't work the way they should. It's a very, very technical product right now. You need to really know what you're doing for it to work and to work securely. But you see where it's going to a point where we will all have these personal agents, and these personal agents will cost us 20, 50, $80 a month, and they will handle things for us like setting appointments with doctors, booking tickets to the show, taking care of all kinds of I need to order pizza for the kids later because they're all going to the pool. So why do I need to do that? Why not the AI agent would do it? So your
But it's
point
not
about
just
each.
that. You're gonna have a lead agent essentially calling
Yes.
out to multiple different agents, just like you might today. Just like someone might have an assistant, and they
Uh-huh.
can't do everything in the world. They help with your email, book with your appointments, do all the things that you can't think about. But then if you need someone to drive you somewhere, they call someone else. They call a third party.
Yes.
It's gonna be the exact same thing for agents as well.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. And then that's going to allow us to have our agents connect, right? Like if we want to set up a meeting, so my agent will call your agent, or instead of spending 45 minutes on a recorded podcast, we'll just have the agents do it and save us the time, and we can be on a beach somewhere. It's really exciting where it's going. You can see the beginnings of a lot of things like OpenClaw and see where those things are going. And I agree with you. Looking 2 years out is really hard, but at least the beginnings are telling us maybe what's possible. So what I like to do at the end of these podcast episodes is just ask a couple questions and try to answer quickly, and then explain why you answered. Okay, why you answered that answer. So super easy. AI tool you can't live without.
Notion agents.
Why?
I have automated all of my calendar scheduling and follow-ups with Notion agents. It's like a few weeks old product. It's amazing.
Amazing. Okay, good. I haven't tried it yet. I should.
Really good.
Okay, an AI myth you'd bust in one sentence.
AI is not a bubble. Even if it was a bubble, the models are not just going to disappear tomorrow. This is the future of software development. This is the future of work. There's not just going to be one binary moment where this ends. It's not going to slow down either. So just got to get used to the pace of change that's happening right now.
You don't foresee a market correction of 30, 40% drop in stocks, et cetera, like across the market, not just the SaaS apocalypse we just had.
On individual companies, some of them are going to go up, some of them are going to go down, some of them aren't going to hit the inflection points they're being valued at. But the macro idea on AI just being a bubble that disappears someday, that's not going to happen. The models are here to stay, and then people are going to continuously improve the models and then improve the applications of the models. There's not just going to be this one moment where we return to normalcy pre ChatGPT.
Okay. Last question. Favorite book, podcast, or resource for builders? Other than this one, of course, what would you recommend?
I really like the AI Circle community. I know you've met them before as well. I think they're bringing together an amazing community of researchers and engineers.
Yeah.
We've held a lot of co-sponsored events with them, and they're now expanding it to not just being AI researchers, but data researchers as well. I think they're doing some really interesting things over there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been, I think, involved in that community for about a month. And I really like where they're going. Amazing. This was really, really interesting and a different perspective on things. I hope that a lot of people found it interesting, especially maybe founders that are thinking about building things and are, maybe need that extra push to look at themselves and see what they're good at and focus on that versus where they're seeing all the headlines out there. So, Ryan, I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to maybe a year, 2 years out, our two avatars have the next episode between them, and then you and I are having a beer somewhere else.
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And anyone who is listening, please remember to like, subscribe, star, whatever is on the platform that you're listening to this. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.